Let us put our palms together. We respectfully invite Jiahhu Shifu to start the class. 3 half bows to Jiahhu Shifu.
1 half bow to the Buddha.
Ami Tuofu.
Okay, let us begin with a 5-minute silent meditation. This year, we are trying to anchor the practice of maintaining the present mind. It begins with the direct experience. So each moment, we use our awareness, the knowing part of our mind. Focus on the breath, or focus on the body sensations. No judgment, just simple, direct perception of what is going on. Your mind is staying on focus. That means your attention is always on the object of your meditation. For example, your breathing. And also your mind is sharp, clear, aware of all the details. And that you can sustain this mindfulness moment after moment for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. Okay, let us begin the class. We put our palms together. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Okay, the meditation practice of maintaining the present mind, in principle, is very simple. It's not easy, and you may struggle with it, struggling to stay focused, struggling to maintain a clear and sharp mind. But the struggle is very, very beneficial. And as we continue this practice, something beautiful happens. You begin to gain insight into your body, into your life, without even thinking about it. So have faith, continue to practice, and you will discover for yourself. Certain insights just come. Okay, last time we talked about the Wholesome Dharmas, and the first two were, do you remember what the first two were? The first two was faith and diligence. I think that's where we stopped. In terms of diligence, we mentioned the opportunities to volunteer for us. So Shifu have listed a few projects that either barely started or can be started if we have the right people. So let's go through some of them. Okay. First part is the digital content project. So that means you can do it anywhere. You can be anywhere. We can communicate online. The first one is transcript editing and publication. So over the years, Shifu has given many lectures and courses in English on Buddhist topics like this one. And last year we did Chinese Zen Masters, right? First in the series. So with the current technology, we can we can transcribe and edit them these transcriptions with much less effort. Okay, so it'll be nice to get some of them into publishable text, either to make it available on our website or to eventually publish as books. Okay, so for this project, we sort of barely started for the English part. We already have a team going for the Chinese lectures. It's been going for about a year now. All right, so for the English part, we have a couple people who have volunteered, but Shifu hasn't really given clear instructions yet. So if we get a couple more people, we can get it really started. So the target volunteer will be ideally someone who likes working with words and has decent English writing skills. If you're really good at English, for example, you look at Shifu's notes, Shifu's annotations, this can be improved. The writing can be improved. That would be great. Okay. You like working with English. Okay, so the test involved basically we can use AI to transcribe Shifu's audio lectures. I rarely write things down. I do have written some articles on Buddhist topics, but I'm usually too lazy to do that or too undisciplined to do that. So most of it is audio lectures. So we can use AI to transcribe audio lectures into reasonable English. That would be version one, the first edition, first version. And you used to take weeks for a person to transcribe it, but now we can do it pretty quickly in a day. Uh, so that's something great that is just possible within the last year. So the key here is to use the right prompt to get it to work. And Shifu has some I have accumulated some experience with that. Okay. All right, so that will be the first version. And then somebody, the volunteer, you who are pretty decent with English, will perform a first pass editing on the transcripts. Okay. And then when that is ready, Shifu will edit the transcription. So that will be pretty close to final. And then the team, the transcription or the editorial team will work in finalizing the text to be published, either on the website or eventually turn into a book. So, for example, the Hundred Dharmas, when Shifu completes the talk, it will be a good annotation, a good commentary on the English on the Hundred Dharmas text as an introduction to the Yogacara school, okay, Buddhist psychology. And Shifu has other topics completed like compassion, Chan compassion contemplation, uh, and the Chinese Zen masters and Heart Sutra. Heart Sutra will be a good one too, right? So there's a lot of work in that. So the commitment is basically ongoing. And so there's more people who can put in more hours, we can get them out faster. If there are few people with few hours commitment, then you just take longer. So that's how it goes. I think 3 to 5 people would be nice. Uh, so that's the first project, also the editorial. Right. The second project is I think it's a pretty interesting one. So last week we introduced our AI tutor, right? So the target volunteer is someone interested in testing and improving the AI interactions. So make the AI tutor more useful and less making less mistakes. Okay. So the task involved is just playing with it, just running through different questions. It's a big part of the learning process for this class as well. You know, answer any questions related to the class, or maybe even test it with questions outside of the class and see whether he responds in a responsible way. All right, you should not answer things outside of the scope with confidence. Okay. All right, so test it by asking various questions and answers. And if some answers that it gives you find to be really good explaining, helping you understand the concepts, then keep them. Compile the high quality answers to possibly share with our English followers. They can be FAQs for the class or Buddhism in general. Another thing is to identify answers that are kind of off or you think may not be so correct. Um, so definitely collect them and send it to Shifu, send it to okay, with the subject title AI tutor. And what we can do is that we can retrain the AI tutor. We can continue to train the AI tutor by providing a right answer, an answer that Shifu gives. and put it as a training source for the tutor. So that way we can improve the tutor. Okay. So that's something I think worth doing. The commitment is ongoing, and you can devote as much or as little time as you want. People needed one or more. Okay. So that's another project. A third project will be YouTube lecture timestamping. So I believe some of our earlier course lectures have timestamps. So what they are is, if you go to some of our older, possibly the Heart Sutra, I'm not sure all of them have timestamps, but maybe or maybe not. But it'll be pretty helpful. So in the lectures, which is usually anywhere from half an hour to a couple hours, so that's pretty long. You can just input the timing as a list in the description box pretty easily. And then YouTube will automatically set them as clickable points where you can jump to that part in the lecture. So for example, in last week's lecture, you can listen, go back and re-listen to the YouTube lecture and then write down the exact time. For example, when Shifu started talking about the first faith. So faith will be where I start talking about faith will be the timestamp, will be a marking. And then when we talk about the subject, the different points in faith, maybe there are 2 or 3 or 4, you can also mark them. And then we still start talking about diligence, the second one, then definitely mark that, right? So that's something involving reviewing, listening to the lecture again, and then write down the timing. Okay. A good way to do that is compare with Shifu's annotation. The annotation have subsections. So each beginning of each subsection would make sense to be a timestamp. Okay. So that's a fairly easy work. It just takes some patience. It's a good way to review the class as well. Okay. All you have to do is write down the numbers. And then Shifu will, we will put it into our YouTube description box to turn them into clickable sections. Okay. So create approximately 5 to 10 timestamps. That would be reasonable per lecture to make the navigation easier. Okay. So commitment, one lecture or more per week would be nice. But we have dozens of lectures already. I believe a lot of them have no timestamps yet. Okay, so people needed one or more, at least one or more. The more, the better. We can split the task. Okay. All right. Another project is short video clip production. So we know that in modern day people are interested in these. They have shorter time spans, interested in these short clips, right? Like TikTok videos or YouTube Shorts or IG Shorts, right? So we can right now we haven't started this project at all. So if there are people who are good at video editing, that's one, this technical aspect, and somebody who can go through our Shifu's previous lectures and pick out these like 30-second or a couple minute parts that can be used as short clip. So they are fairly independent, self-complete teachings that you think will be useful. Um, or you can extract the teaching available and then use the audio to make new images, images that or animations that is suitable for the material. Okay, so if you're interested in that, either from picking out the sections or doing the technical aspects, those involve different skill sets, right? So if you're interested in that, if we have probably it would be good to have 3 or more people in the team, right? It will be too much work for one person. So commitment is ongoing, and the time needed is self-determined. Ideally, we can produce one video clip a week. That would be nice. Okay, 1 or more. So that's the short clip production project. Another project will be social media presence. Right now, we don't have any social media presence except the YouTube videos, lectures, and then they're not being promoted in any way, and they are, people need to dig it. I don't think too many new people have discovered us just by discovering our lectures on their own. So, some sort of social media presence will be good to attract new people to get to know us and get to know Shifu's teaching. All right, so that's the goal, attract new followers to the Dharma. Target volunteer, someone who is familiar with the younger generation or social media regular users' preferences. So Shifu is, pretty old for that generation and not so interested in interacting on the social media, right? So I haven't looked at my social media interactions for at least a couple weeks, 2 3 weeks now. Anyway, so people who knows who are in this trend, who use it regularly, who sort of have a feeling for what kind of content, what kind of post that would be attractive to people. All right. Um, so generate short postings, whether they are text with images or show videos that we're producing from the show video team. But this kind of thing we need to post it regularly, right? So it's a long-term commitment. Ideally, we can produce 1 or 2 postings, whether on WhatsApp or IG, right? Per week. All right. So I think we need at least 2 people or more for this project. If we're people willing to do this, we can get it started. If not, then we just don't start it. Okay. Another thing is the ongoing group discussion. So this is something that Shifu wanted to do with the English followers, but we just haven't had the volunteers to do that. We already started with the Chinese followers. And in fact, we have about 30 or so teams doing these continuing online discussions, Dharma discussions. So what it is that, Shifu teach this class. This is the 6th class in a series of 8 classes, so we have 3 more. And then I will need to take a break and doing other things. So until I believe July is when Shifu will start a new class in English. And in July, we'll continue the teaching of this 100 Dharmas because we're not going to be able to finish this 100 Dharmas, right? All right, so between the ending of this class at the end of February to July, we'll have some activities. Like we'll continue with the half-day meditations and the Sunday morning meditations. And Shifu may give special topic lectures now and then. But mainly I'll be not have a regular course going. So that would be a good time for you to self-organize into small teams we can meet regularly, say once every 2 weeks or more if you want, or less if you want, right? So once a month will be probably the minimum. Twice a month will be good. So the team, each group can decide when you want to meet. You can do it online or you can do it, in person if you're all in the same area. Ideally, starting with people you know already, right? So people that are interested in the Dharma and you know already. And then crucial here is the team leader. So somebody has to volunteer as the team leader and help gather this team and then keep it going. So the team leader has a heavier commitment. You want to encourage people, encourage your team members, remind them, get it going, and lead the discussion at first. So Sifu, we will give you some training. Okay, we'll give you some training and give you some guidance on how we want the discussion to go. Okay, so for example, when this class ends in February, uh, for the next couple months, it probably will be a good idea to go over and review some part of the class. And then we can start reviewing something else, something that I've already taught. For example, the Chinese Zen masters that we taught last year. It'd be good to go back to some of that teaching or other things that Shifu can guide the English uh, group uh, throughout the year. Give you some guidance on what to study. Okay, but you can set your own pace. You can set your own pace, and then you get to discuss the questions you're interested in. Okay. So tasks involve volunteers to be a team leader and then team formation. It would be ideal to get people you know. Our experience is that we assign people to teams that don't last. That the failure rate is pretty high. Maintain ongoing discussion sessions as pursues guidance. Okay, commitment is long term, and it involves people who wants to follow Sifu's teaching. Okay, you want to follow Sifu's teaching. You're pretty committed. You're interested. You're even serious about the practice. Okay, so the more team leaders, the more teams we can have. You know, the goal would be that everybody is in some discussion group or another. Okay. So these are the online projects. There's one on-site project. On-site meaning Prajna Forest Monastery in Ben Lomond, which is about an hour drive south of, say, San Jose, Cupertino, okay, in the South Bay area. So if you live in this South Bay area, and you are interested in coming to the monastery on weekends, uh, then to do work, mostly labor work, right? Physical labor. So individuals living in the Bay Area, you can come on weekend. Not every weekend, it depends on your schedule. So tasks involved, we need somebody to coordinate and drive, because we encourage carpooling, instead of everybody drive on their own. So carpooling will save resources. Coordinate groups, arrange meeting places, local meeting places, so somebody can meet somewhere in South Bay and then pick them up and then drive to the monastery. And then in the afternoon before, while it's still light, still before sunset, drive them back to the meeting place so they can go home. Okay. And the work mainly is physical maintenance of the property. So there's a lot of work. There's endless work. So more people can do more, less people just do less, right? So you can learn the monastery layout and tools to help with groundkeeping, Specific tasks include trimming trees, chopping down fallen tree trunks, sweeping and cleaning up the environment, making trails. We would like to make some trails on the property, so we can go hiking even within the property. That would be nice. And there are others. For example, working in the kitchen and providing cooking for meals for the volunteers. Yeah, that would be nice. Okay, so there's plenty of things to do here. Commitment whenever you can. The coordinator need to commit more regularly, right? So if you volunteer as a coordinator of the English volunteers, you can't just do it for 1 week and not do it, right? So more regular commitment. So any number of people. So these are the currently volunteer opportunities that we can think of. So those of you, if you're interested in any of these projects, definitely let us know by sending email to us or to one of our class volunteers, the GAs. Okay, our general email is info@pdzen.org. Okay. All right. Any questions about the volunteering projects? Do you have any questions? You can raise your hand or you can write it in the chat box. Okay. If there are no questions, then let's see.
Shifu, can we get this via email so we know, because we'll forget.
Sure. I will put a link of this file, this doc, here on the, let's see. I'll put a link here, so it's available for anyone to see in the chat box already. We'll also send it via email, okay, within next week. Okay. All right, so let's move on then. Okay, so we started talking about the 11 wholesome mental factors last week, right? Okay, let's close our eyes and refresh our memory on what we talked about last week. So in terms of the first one, which is faith, what do you remember from last class about faith? We talked about how this is not blind faith, right? The faith in Buddhism is not blind faith. What is blind faith? And why is the Buddhist faith different from blind faith? Do we encourage you to challenge or to question the teaching? Yes, we do. We do. You should verify for yourself. It should make sense to you. How important is faith in the Buddhist practice? And what other disciplines, fields also need faith? So it's not just religious practice, not just spiritual disciplines, right? In fact, many regular worldly disciplines does require faith. And we talked about the 4 levels of faith, right? There's new faith. What's next? Right faith, deep faith, real faith. What does that mean? And where do you think you are in terms of the Buddhist Dharma? What level of faith are you? It's perfectly okay that you're in the first level or the second level. You'd have to have a very deep understanding of emptiness of the self to be in the 3rd level. Okay. All right, so what do we learn about diligence as a wholesome factor? And we talked about, so diligence is not simply about working hard, right? It is putting effort, persistent effort, but it's not just blindly grinding physically or mentally until you get exhausted, right? So diligence has to do with persistent effort. And we talked about unmindful effort, right? Unmindful diligence. And there's smart effort. And there's also mindful effort. What are the differences? Okay, good. So now we had a quick review. Oh, there's the 4 right exertions, which keep them, we should know them. Prevent the unarisen evil, eradicate the evil already arisen, awaken the unarisen good, nurture the good already arisen. These are the standard sort of principle or model for diligence, for Buddhist diligence. So whatever in your thoughts, in your behavior, in your action that is not wholesome, we should notice it, notice them, cut them off, prevent them from happening again. Whatever is wholesome, good, beneficial, good for our practice, good for others, beneficial to others, then we should develop them. We should bring them out, yeah, and develop them further. Okay. All right. I don't believe we had a chance to look at the questions at the end of diligence. So let's look at them. Renewal of commitment. Do you recall a time when you could have accomplished something but did not because of lack of diligence and persistence? Maybe you got lazy, maybe you procrastinated, maybe you got taken by some other task and you forgot about it. So share with us, would you like to renew that commitment? Huh? If you do, also share with us, let us know your commitment and that will help keep you going. Yeah. So I regularly ask you to make some commitment, whether short term, like 1 week or 2 weeks, 1 month, or long term. Yeah, commitments in the exercises, in the homework exercises, right? Developing these, having these commitments help develop wholesome habits or wholesome behavior, right? All right. Good deeds. Recall a time when you were proud of yourself, when you completed something requiring diligence and effort that was helpful to others. So surely we have all done things like that, right? Whether it's a small thing or a big thing, and we feel pretty proud of it. Do you have similar commitments now? How about volunteer for Shifu, right? Note, feeling proud does not automatically equal to pride. What is the balance? It's okay to feel good when you've done something nice, good, and beneficial to others, right? You naturally feel good. That feeling good itself is not a problem. It's not an issue. But becoming attached to that or have our ego involved in that, that's when it becomes a problem, right? So how do you tell the difference? Okay, so now let us look at the next couple of wholesome factors. Shame and embarrassment. Now this may be a little bit surprising because in the Western English culture, these two mental states are usually associated with negative, something negative, right? Feeling shame, feeling embarrassed in Western psychology, but they are wholesome factors here. So it'll be that means shame, embarrassment. There's a way to, we can have these feelings or thoughts that can be positive or it can be negative. All right, so it can lead to something positive, it can lead to something negative. So we need to have the right discernment, right? All right, so we can talk about them together. These two closely related mental states are expressions of our conscience. That's why they are good. They have similar nature activities, differing only in that shame refers to feeling ashamed of oneself. So often I feel ashamed of myself. So it's an internal thing. It's an internal thing. Embarrassment, we embarrass ourselves in front of others. So embarrassment is outward. It's because some outward behavior that make you feel embarrassed. Refers to being embarrassed in front of others for wrongdoing. Okay, both involve wrongdoing or making foolish things or making mistakes or doing something unwholesome, something bad. So they had the wholesome effect of stopping one's wrongdoing. It is shame, embarrassment that alert us. We don't want to feel shameful. We don't want to feel embarrassed again. So therefore, that becomes a force to stop us from doing that in the future, making the same mistakes or doing something foolish, hurtful, or even harmful in the future. That's why they are positive mental factors. So they are the twin pillars of human integrity. We can look at shame as related to the self-respect. Yeah, it's our internal moral compass, the self-respect that stop us from doing wrong. So when we have shame, we have a conscience inside. And you can look at it as because we respect ourselves, we have bottom line. We have a line where we don't want to cross. Yeah. So when we don't have shame, that means the person doesn't have a bottom line on what kind of things they can do. Something that's very shocking in the news for the past year or so was the Epstein files, right? So that's totally shocking. We don't know how many famous people are involved. There are all kinds of speculations, but the fact that this thing exists, right? This island of very, very harmful things to minors exist means that a lot of people who actually get involved in this endeavor, have no shame, have no self-respect, have no moral bottom line, right? Okay, embarrassment is our social conscience. So that means when we interact with people, we also know what kind of things we should not do. And if in terms of karma, bad karma, something that lead to bad karma is something we don't want people to know that we are doing. We don't, first of all, we don't want to do it. And if we actually did it, we don't want people to know, right? So the best way is to not do it. So it's a social conscience, the sense of accountability we feel to others and the community. Because bad karma is something that hurt others, right? So we don't want to hurt others. But when we actually did something, for example, let's say a person got drunk and then say some nasty, regrettable things to others, or even did something physical. That's quite possible. I have personally witnessed such situations when I was quite young. Uh, uh, a neighbor was one of the nicest person, one of the nicest American I have ever met. But he has a vice that whenever he drinks, he loves to drink. Whenever he drinks, he gets out of control. He doesn't stop until he's drunk. So one day, something terrible happened. He got drunk and he hit his wife. So that's all it takes. His wife left him. That was probably close to 50 years ago. Okay, I was really young. So that broke up the family. So it just take one act. That it'll be embarrassing. It'll be embarrassing and it'll be shameful. When you do something like that to somebody you love, right? Of course, there are much worse things a person can do. Okay, so when people are ashamed of wrongdoing, they are likely to repent. So repentance is a important Buddhist practice. Repentance basically means that, first of all, I admit if I repent something something I did, that means that I admit what I did was not good, was not moral, or was not beneficial. It was hurtful to some others. Okay, so admitting that I had made a mistake, and a commitment that I will try pretty hard to not make the same mistake again. So that's the basics of Buddhist repentance. So it's really an internal thing. But we do have repentance rituals, repentance ceremony, rituals, where we gather together and we make the repentance together. Okay, so when people are ashamed of their wrongdoing, they're likely to repent and work on preventing future wrong actions. That's how they are positive. When they are embarrassed, they are afraid of the humiliation, criticism, or judgment from others, which also help prevent it. Sometimes internal force is not strong enough. So then the social or public judgment becomes actually a positive force. Okay. So in the Abhidharma, which is Buddha's analysis of the Buddha's teaching, shame is not a feeling of being bad. It is a capacity to recognize the value of virtue. So that's a good way to think about it. Shame is not about a feeling ashamed. Of course, that the feeling may accompany that mental state, okay? But it's more importantly, it is about the ability, the capacity to recognize what is moral, what is virtue, what is merit, and that's something we should work on. And then when we fail at that in a small or big way, then there's a shame. Okay, that's what shame is. Shame, embarrassment is. So this is an internal standard. You refrain from evil because you value your own character. You have self-respect. You want to be a certain type of person. You don't want to be a certain type of another type of person, right? You don't want to be that person. You want to be this. You have role models. You have an idea of who you want to be, right? For example, Buddha would be a ideal for us to follow, a role model for us to follow. Think about your role models. Who are the people that you respect? Whether they are historical figures, great people, or personal role models. They represent the characteristics, the personal integrity, personal characters that you admire and you want to follow. So that becomes part of you eventually. In terms of Buddhist practice, so who are your models that can help you on the path to awakening? So for example, last year we had this course on Chinese Zen masters. Any one of these Chinese Zen masters can be a great model that we want to follow, right? And we can raise our internal standard. That's something to know. Just because you have a certain internal standard of who you are and how good you are, how good you want to be, doesn't mean it cannot be upped. Doesn't mean you cannot upgrade it, right? You can set higher goals for yourself. So a thought process, I won't do this because it is beneath my dignity as a practitioner, as a Buddhist. Okay. All right, embarrassment is kind of a moral dread or a sense of accountability to others. So that's another good way to think about embarrassment as a mental factor in the 11 wholesome factors is accountability to others. Sort of a unspoken commitment to others. This is a relational standard. You refrain from evil because you respect the community, your teachers, or the law of karma. Okay. The thought process is that I won't do this because it will harm my community. It will harm my family. It would harm my circle of friends. For example, telling rumors, spreading rumors about your friend to other friends, that hurts not only that friend, but it hurts the whole circle of friends, right? I won't do this because he is a disrespectful of my mentors, right? So that can be a positive force. Now, in this modern world, we have witnessed a moral desensitization in the ruling elite in many countries' leaders. We have witnessed leaders who use character assassination as a tool, and where broken promises like a badge of pride. They're actually proud. They have no shame about breaking promises they made earlier. They even seem proud of it. When public figures can lie without blushing, and the public has become numb to it, then we may be at a point of ethical bankruptcy as a whole, or the image of the nation, as perceived by other nations. Right? Is this nation, is this country a trustworthy partner, a trustworthy alliance, right? When we normalize what was unthinkable in traditional family education. So just maybe when you were young, your parents will tell you, your teachers, school teacher will tell you what to do, what not to do, what will be shameful, what will be beneath, what will be a bad personal character. When we do value personal integrity, right? But right now we are witnessing certain well-known public figures who blatantly violate that. They set an example. They not only affect themselves, they set an example for countless, for millions. So that would be example of very low levels of shame and embarrassment. Okay? And that, of course, lead to a lot of harm. The higher the person's position, the more harm it can cause. So public figures, we should understand public figures, they have the potential to create a lot of good by setting a positive, by becoming a positive role model. People follow their example and become good people themselves. Aspire more people, aspire the public to become like them. Or they can create very bad karma very quickly. They can create immense bad karma very quickly by setting bad examples for millions to follow. Many years ago, when I was in Taiwan, Taiwan's monastery, there was an opportunity to interact with a well-known a news broadcaster. She was a very well-known broadcast host for news in Taiwan. But she knew very little about Buddhism. So we were talking a little bit. And toward the end, I mentioned to her, because, in Taiwan, as well as, many, probably every country, they are very responsible news agencies, and they are very irresponsible news agencies, right? Newspaper or news agency who fabricate lies just to get people's attention, just to get people to look at the news and buy the news, and so on. So there was a time, well, it's ongoing, but in particular, there were some, one particular very terrible, well, not one, several news agencies was spreading a lot of rumor, totally fabricated, about the monastery. Okay. So this lady, she was more conscientious, so she wanted to know what's really going on. That's why she was interviewed us. So toward the end, I told her about what I just said earlier about people in the news who are broadcasting news, who are writing the news. They do also have the capacity to generate very, very good karma very fast by being honest, having a sense of responsibility in what they report. But even then, you have a choice of reporting on news that inspire people or focus on negative events. Okay? Even if you are reporting the truth. So if you look at a lot of modern news now, it's usually always bad news. And over time, that will have long-term effects on the society. They are, I look at some Chinese news. It's interesting. Some Chinese news in China, they are often news about small town characters or small town events, about certain good deeds, certain heartwarming stories, which in our regular Western news atmosphere, nobody will report that, and they will not attract any attention. But there's actually plenty of that, and it happens regularly in that news culture. I thought that was good, because even though the impact may be small, may be local, but when you report on the positive aspect of the society, you realize, oh, there are actually many people helping each other, having integrity, being good people. If we only report on the negative news when something bad happens, even though they are still the truth, reality of what happens, that would have negative effects overall, right? Okay, but another point is that when your news reporting is not faithful, you haven't done due diligence, you haven't did all your work in trying to find the truth, and you base the reporting on rumors, just because it's sensational. It attracts the views. You could that news reporting could be creating huge, immense bad karma without them realizing it. Yeah, they don't understand the cause and effect, the interdependence of the karma. They can be creating huge bad karma without realizing it. They think, well, it's just a job. That's what my boss wanted. We want to get, the more sensational news to attract the people, to attract the youth. They may think it's it's just a practice, but it actually can be very serious karma. Okay, how can shame and embarrassment become a motivation to prevent the arisen evil and eradicate the evil already risen? Share examples. Okay. And another question to think about or to discuss with each other, can shame become destructive? How to prevent that from happening to yourself? Yeah. Let's have an interaction here. So let's think about this right now. Can shame or embarrassment become destructive? And let's talk about this together. What is public shaming? So that's becoming a well-known term, right? Public shaming. Does the shame there in public shaming mean the same thing as shame in the wholesome factors? Let's talk about this together. What are some of the negative aspects of shame, embarrassment, and how we can prevent that? Why? Why is it that shame, embarrassment could become negative or even destructive? Okay, so let's talk about that. Identify the the conditions or the factors that make them negative, and so that we can better know how to make it positive. Okay. Okay, so there's a question. Is it skillful for me to feel shame or embarrassment for the actions of public figure representing my own country? Yes, we certainly should have some shame or embarrassed about our public figure, especially if they are elected by ourselves, right? Even though you may not have voted for that person, but the country as a whole voted for it. What does that mean? What does that represent about the society? Not to be, judgmental, but to understand what is going on. It usually means that a lot of people are blinded by emotions. Yeah, some of the nastiest or shameless public figures, they are very good at stirring up emotions in people, making people excited or angry, and that's how they get their votes. Yeah, that's pretty base, pretty low, but people use that, right, to get with what they want. It's basically a form of manipulation. So it means that, if we tend to have these kind of public figures, that means that the society as a whole has an issue. uh, the education is not complete, right? Family education, there's a breakdown of family education and school education and social education, right? Does this serve any purpose of greater good or for myself or others to dwell on their actions? It sometimes feel exhausting. Yes, I can certainly understand what you're feeling. Sometimes it gets very exhausting. It can drain you even, because your leader, our leaders, make us feel exhausted because we also feel powerless, right? Okay, so this is a very good issue. Let's think about this. Many of us do feel embarrassed or about their actions, especially in front of other citizens of other nations, how they have behaved. But then there doesn't seem to be anything you can do about it because they get elected and they have the terms. As long as they are in office, they do what they want. So in terms of Buddhist practice, what should we do? What can we do? Anybody want to contribute to this? So the key, of course, is not to get exhausted, right? When we get exhausted, that means we are dwelling on something possible something practical, and we are trapped in this cycle, right? This mental cycle. So there's definitely a Buddhist way to deal with the situation. Yeah. Anybody want to contribute in the chat? Or talk? Whoever you. Okay, here's a reply. We should stay objective and honest in our perception about anyone, including our leaders or family members. We should stay objective. Okay, so it's easy to fall into a total negation or thinking that that person has no hope or is totally evil, right? That can make us biased. So one thing we can do is try to think of, does that person that we don't like feel embarrassed about? Does that person have any positive qualities? It's a good mental exercise. Think about any positive qualities of everybody who you don't like or you don't agree with. Okay. That's one thing. Another is that while we may feel embarrassed about that person representing us, we should also separate the responsibility. Okay? The responsibility. So, I, as a person, am I being a responsible person? Okay? So, even though you may not be able to personally throw that person out of the office, but one thing we can do is to have meaningful conversations with others in a calm way. Because, right, in for example, in the US, we public leaders get there by election. So what is important when we vote? Are we objective? Are we emotional? Do we know their policies? Do we know their personal character? Probably the personal character is more important than their policies, because policies could become just words, right? So personal character. Okay. Start grassroots efforts with local politicians so that they can potentially influence their parties for changes for the better. Yeah, that would be a really good starting point. If you want to do that, if you want to spend part of your life doing that, grassroots efforts with local politicians, right? When Shifu was at Sunnyvale Zen Center, we do interact occasionally with local politicians. So like the city mayor, the county supervisors, they come to visit the Zen Center on certain important ceremonies. And so Shifu will have an opportunity to chat with them. And that would be actually a good time to, first of all, for them to learn a little bit about the Dharma. Because when they participate in our ceremonies, Shifu will give a talk about the Dharma, and they will have that karma seed in it. and we can have conversations, hopefully to inspire them to think about what is best for the people and how to govern, right? We're not trying to influence their politics, but to share what the Buddhist view is about benefiting people, okay? We can remind ourselves of impermanence, right? So, yeah, things will change. So when we cannot change the present, think about the future, right? So the present state of things is a result of past cause. Causality, past cause lead to present. So the reason that we are having these leaders is because of years in the past. Not just one vote, it's years in the past. Right? So for the future, for your future and for your children in their society, it's a long-term thing. So how can we create a better future? So family education is important. Parents becoming good role models is important, right? And the friends, the social circle, who are you with? And it's important. The good social circle will reinforce each other. For example, earlier Shifu talked about the project of forming group discussions of the Dharma so that we can continue year long at your own pace to, never get away from the Dharma practice. And we encourage each other. So that can become a very powerful way to influence each other, to have others influence us in a positive way, and keep going with our practice and with our Dharma learning. So that will be planting seeds of awakening for the future, right? And who knows, at one point, your friends, you or your friends or your friends' friends may learn from, may have a chance to hear the Dharma. And that friend that, friend from third degree may be a politician, maybe a public figure, right? So that is really actually happening in many areas. There are some well-known celebrities who are Buddhists, right? You probably know some. In Taiwan, there are many public celebrities, including in the entertainment industry, in cultural circles, who are well-known followers of the Dharma. Okay. So look at the positive side, sort of letting go of what you cannot do and focus on what you can do, even if it's local effort, right? Local effort can propagate, like ripples can propagate a long time. Yeah. Remember Buddha, he was actually a local influence during his lifetime. He traveled up and down the Ganges River mostly, right? So he was a powerful religious spiritual teacher, but not all over India. In certain regions, like mostly northern part of India, he has disciples going to central and southern India and even Sri Lanka, right? But mainly his influence was in northern part of India. But then eventually spread through all over India and then spread through Central Asia and spread to most of Asia. Okay, Eastern Asia, China became heavily influenced by Buddhism. And that all happened hundreds of years after the Buddha. So local influence can actually propagate, right, if it's really good. Okay, how shall we understand or respond to situations like China where the government refuses to respect the wishes of local people? For example, Its takeover of Tibet, Hong Kong, and its potential actions toward Taiwan. Very interesting. Do you really want to talk about this? Do you know that for hundreds of years, Tibet, Hong Kong, and Taiwan has been part of China? It's really the Western narrative. So for a Chinese person who understands history, it's like saying, California should have its independence because the people want it. It's like saying that to a Chinese person. Okay. And also, there's certainly a lot of things that certain types of Western freedom, personal freedom, that you don't have in China. But on the other hand, there are certain freedoms in China that you don't have in the United States. For example, the freedom of not to be robbed or shoot to death. Gun violence, a victim of gun violence. Every year in the United States, more than hundreds of people get shot to death by gun violence. That does not happen in China. In most part of China, you can walk, a female, a woman can walk at night by herself and be safe. In many parts of China, you can leave your belongings in a public place, come back an hour later, it's still there. And that's because there are surveillance cameras everywhere. So you can look at it as a very bad thing, but you can look at it as a way to prevent crimes, right? You cannot criticize the government directly, but you can give feedback to policies. And the policies that people give feedback to the government, they actually, many of them are taken seriously and changes do happen. Okay, for example, many years ago, a foreigner in China he's probably working in China, and he was having a dinner party with some friends, associates. And the party is over. One of the Chinese friends said, "Let me drive you home." But then he allowed her to drink. So the foreigner says, "What? But you shouldn't be able to drive when you're drinking." You find out that there's no such law against drunken driving. Okay? So he told them how this is very dangerous and so on and so on. Okay, and this is allowed in the United States. So the friend took it to heart. And then a few months later, that became a law. That became a law first in the city, and then eventually it became a law throughout the whole nation. Right? So you do not have a lot of freedom that Americans have or value in China. But one way to look at that is it is because they need that strong central government to think about common good, like building up infrastructures, lifting millions and millions of people out of poverty over the last 20 years. They lifted billions of people out of extreme poverty in the last 20 years. Did you know that? So there are two sides to everything. Saying this doesn't mean, a person wants to live in China or not. But then there are so many sides to this complicated issue. And there is a lot of false narratives about China designed to fool people. So visit China and see for yourself, okay? And about Taiwan, I was born in Taiwan. I was raised to see the Chinese government as evil. And when I came to the States, when I was a teenager, over the years, I began to see a different side. Not to flip over, but different sides I didn't know before. Okay, and it's complicated. But what I also see is, we as a Taiwanese, I'm facing the threat of Taiwan returning to China. But did you know that many people in Taiwan actually want the unification? Because the economy in Taiwan has been stagnant for the last 20 or 30 years due to corruption and incapable public leaders. So it's complicated, okay? All right, next reply, be a good role model, planting seeds. Yes, think about the future. Okay, so I don't think there's a lot of, nobody responded to about this balance and publishing. Okay, so that's it. Let's move on. The next set of wholesome factors are non-greed, non-anger, and non-ignorance. So we talk about these three together. You may be familiar of the three poisons in Buddhism. That's greed, anger, ignorance. These are like the source of all evil, the source of all unwholesome deeds, the source of all bad karma. Greed, anger, ignorance within our mind. Okay. So the opposite of that, the opposite of greed, the opposite of anger, the opposite of evil, ignorance. These are the three very important primary wholesome roots. They're called the three wholesome roots because they are predominant in the production of our good. And that they're the direct opposite of the three roots of evil, the three poisons. Okay, so why do we use such a strange term, non-greed, non-anger, and non-ignorance? So it's an interesting feature of Sanskrit and probably many Indian languages to add a prefix "a" or "a", "a". When you added that "a" in front of a term, it negates it. So when you, for example, lobha is a term in Sanskrit for greed. So alobha will be the opposite of greed. All right. So what is the opposite of greed in English or Chinese? There's not just one term, right? You can think of many terms. So greed or non-greed would be able to include all of them. That's a neat feature of Sanskrit or Indian language. Yeah, it's a neat feature. So there's a whole range of non-greed or non-anger. Okay, so this makes it easy to create many new terms opposite to the root term. Whereas in English has some words that are like that, right? Like unwholesome is such a word. Wholesome, unwholesome, right? But that doesn't work with every term. Chinese is similar, right? So often we have to come up with different terms to represent the opposite of it. So in Buddhism, the purity of mind is not achieved by adding, creating wholesomeness to the mind as if something external, but by removing unwholesome factors. Therefore, non-greed, non-anger, non-ignorance is the most straightforward expression. In other words, when you are able to have non-greed, non-anger, non-ignorance totally, you have removed the three poisons, then your mind is pure. It's pure. Okay? Okay, non-greed or non-craving or no desire. The nature of non-greed is the non-attachment. See, that's the key, non-attachment to the three realms of existence, to their causes and to all the objects in them. Sight, sound, smells, food, wealth, beauty, and so on. This activity, its activity or effect is to counter greed and produce good. All right. So that's the definition. So what does that mean is that the mind does not give in to desires and lust. So desire means unwholesome desire, right? So we talked about desire earlier in the 5 particulars. Remember desire? And we say that they are good desires, right? The desire to be wholesome, the desire to create good karma, the desire to benefit people, the desire to become enlightened. But a lot of times we have desires for worldly pleasure, desire that can control us, desire that can run wild, right? So those are dangerous. So non-attachment. So we do not give in to desires and lusts. Furthermore, one may be willing to share one's possessions with us. So not giving to desires is one thing. It's one level of non-greed. An even more advanced level of non-greed will be that not only I don't, spend my money on useless things or temporary pleasure, I'm even willing to to give my money to others who need them more, or to help others, to devote my time to others who needs my help, to be willing to give, to do charity, right? So that's also non-greed. Charity is generosity is a level of non-greed, right? So a person who is not greedy doesn't mean a person who is willing to do charity. So there are different levels, and they are all covered by non-greed. So its activity is to counter greed and produce good. So hopefully you go further in non-greed to produce good. Question: on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank your greed tendencies? No, greed is too general, so specific. All of us have more desires in certain areas than other areas. So pick some area that you may have greed. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being maximum, maximum greed, craving, uncontrollable craving. How would you rank your greed tendencies? How would you rank your non-greed tendencies? Yeah. So They are not mutually exclusive. You can have greed and non-greed for one thing at the same time. So, separately, think about it. For example, do you like donuts or sweet pastries? Yeah, do you like them? Okay, you like them. So what is the level of greed from 1 to 10? 10 means that you cannot stop eating them. Whenever you see them, you gotta buy it, you gotta eat it. You gotta eat it till you drop, right? So most people are not there, but then they do like it. So 1 to 10, what is the level of greed? And the level of non-greed, what about the level of non-greed toward pastries? How able are you to resist the temptation to eat that pastry when you know you shouldn't be eating it? What is the level? Okay, so it helps to understand ourselves. All right, let's look at non-anger or non-hatred. Okay, ad divisra. Again, A is the opposite of anger. The nature of non-anger is the lack of anger towards dukkha received. Dukkha means unpleasantry, unpleasantness, unfulfillment, suffering in life. So everybody has dukkha. The causes of such dukkha, so you don't get angry at having suffered. You don't get angry at the person or the thing that caused you suffering. You don't get angry at the environment in which the suffering takes place. Yeah. So we see examples of that. People can hate the place or the environment for having experienced something bad there. People can hate it when they are suffering. People can hate it for the reason, for the person or the issue, the situation that caused them suffering. So no anger towards all of that. The activity or effect of non-anger is to counter ill will and produce good. Again, it produces good. For example, one is not angry for catching the flu, and sometimes we get upset. Why is it me that I have to catch the flu? Why do I feel so miserable? I hate it. That's anger, right? Not angry at a friend who passed it on the flu. So maybe you went out with a friend and then that person passed the flu to you. You're not angry at a friend. You're not angry at the place where it took place. Yeah. Non-anger ranges from staying calm. So be cool about it. Pretty calm. You don't feel you have to react to it. You don't give in to your emotions, right? To more higher levels of non-anger, which is loving kindness. Loving kindness means that you want to make people happy. You want to see people being happy. Okay, so not only that, so it's easy to practice loving kindness to your friends and family, right? You want to see them happy. It's a lot harder to practice loving kindness to people who don't like you, people who give you dukkha, right? So it will be pretty advanced level of non-anger to practice loving kindness to the people who try to hurt you, to the people who are mean to you. But that's exactly what it takes to turn the situation around and to uproot the negativity between you and that person. Isn't that true? Okay, so question. What situations or behaviors easily trigger you? So what kind of words, behavior situation make you flare up with emotion? Yeah. List 5 things. Second, what Dharma teachings can help improve your non-anger score toward these 5 things? So we have learned a lot of things. We have learned a lot of things, even in this class, yeah, to be able to help. So these are the tools in your tool bag, in your toolbox. What have we learned in this class that can help me deal with these 5 things that trigger me? And help me practice, become better at non-anger toward these situations. Yeah? Okay? Non-ignorance, lack of ignorance, non-delusion. So ignorance or delusion, depending on the context, its nature is that the clearly understanding both principles and events. And its activity is to counter ignorance and produce good. So principles and events means what's happening. So the phenomena. When something happens, do you understand? Do you perceive it objectively? So what's going on here? You know, what's going on here? What is this country's leader doing to its people? Do we have an objective view of that? What am I doing to my children? Is it good? Is it not good? Do I have ignorance? So that's the event, the phenomena. Principle means the cause and effect, the logic behind it. Why this is happening? Why this is happening? Why something is happening? There's always cause and effect, right? Causality. Do you understand the causality? The cause and conditions that make this happen? A lot of times we see something happen, we get upset, we develop greed without understanding the cause that lead to it and the effect that it can have when we fully let out our greed and anger. We don't see the previous cause, we don't see the future effect. That's not clear on the principle of causality. Okay, so non-ignorance means understanding that. Example of non-ignorance. Recognizing which area one is ignorant about. So, do you know what you are ignorant about? I'm sure we are all ignorant about something, and we are we have good knowledge about many things, but we also are ignorant about many things too. So which areas are you ignorant about? That's important. Not to feel bad about yourself, but to be objective, right? So that we don't think we know and make foolish decisions. Yeah? As a leader, whether you are a manager in a company, whether you are a CEO, whether you are a political leader, whether you are the leader in your family, whether you are a teacher in a class, do you know what you are ignorant about and not have the false sense of confidence? For example, let's say you are a teacher, you're teaching a class of students, one student may say something that is different from what you say. right? Different from your belief. But then the student may be right because it's not in the area that you are familiar with. It is in the area that you're ignorant about. You may feel offended because the student is countering you, what you say. But you are actually pretty ignorant about that area. But because you are you feel you are the teacher, so there's an automatic assumption that I should know everything more than the student. I should have authority over the student in everything. That's a falsehood, right? So knowing what you're ignorant about is a really good thing. That's part of wisdom. Knowing what you don't know is part of wisdom. It's part of non-ignorance. Working on removing those ignorance, right? So that's part of non-ignorance. Contemplating and apprehending the Four Noble Truths, dependent origination or interdependence, and causality, right? So that's removing ignorance about reality. Is removing our ignorance about the Dharma. Knowing what good karma and bad karma are and how they are created. That's important, right? Know what creates good karma or creates bad karma. Which friends are beneficial and which have harmful influences. Which being able to discern truth from falsehood, not easily taken in by one-sided views or web postings. Yeah, so along with internet, words can spread like wildfire, and a lot of being circulated around is not true or biased or personal opinions. Yeah? So actually, instead of becoming more objective, knowledgeable, it becomes a lot easier for us to get fooled by what we see and read. Do we have the rational, the right discernment to stop and think about whether it makes sense, whether this is reasonable, is it rational? It becomes even more important now. Okay. Being enlightened, total removal of ignorance is enlightenment. Non-ignorance obviously plays a key role here. So if we know more about the mental factors and how they work with each other, in other words, the mechanism of our mind, we are getting less ignorant. Before, we may know nothing about how our mind works. We may believe that our emotions take over us and there's nothing we can do. We may believe that things just happen. We may feel powerless. But by removing that ignorance, we begin to know more about where our power lies. Our power lies exactly in putting the right cause, the right seed, getting the right conditions to make things happen. Make things happen that benefit ourselves and benefit others. We can do that. We can be as powerful and wise as the Buddha. It does take a lot of practice, right? So we can view non-ignorance as both mental state of the moment. At this moment, we were meditating. So at the beginning of this class, when Shifu said, let us practice being in the present moment. And that means two things. One, concentration. We stay focused on the breath. Two, clarity of mind. If we have clarity of mind as we meditate on the breath, we directly experience the air moving through our nose, in and out, tiny changes. That is more clarity of mind. That is being non-ignorant at the moment. When you are reading and you are correctly comprehending what you're reading, that is the non-ignorance of that moment. Right now, you're listening to Shifu, right? So if we close our eyes and think about non-greed, non-anger, non-ignorance, what are they? Why do we use the term non-greed instead of knowledge or intelligence or understanding? Why don't we use that word instead? Why do we use this strange term non-greed or non-ignorance, right? So you remember this? And you understand that each word, each term has a range, a level, right? And these are the three wholesome roots. They are fundamental in our good. So when you remember this, and you understand this, at this moment, for the last 5-10 minutes, there's non-ignorance. The mind is sharp and clear. Right? So it's very relevant in our everyday life. It's a crucial part of mindfulness, right? Clarity of mind. As well as not ignorance, as well as in the long term, is a part of the path. From clarity of mind, having the right view, to removing ignorance and delusion, to ultimate enlightenment. So non-ignorance is at play here all throughout the whole path. So beginning with awareness of the breath, which doesn't seem very useful, but it is the training of clarity of mind. So moving from that to mindfulness of the whole body, you gain more insight from practicing mindfulness of the whole body. You begin to understand how your body works and which part of the body is complaining that you were ignorant about. So now you become non-ignorant. You begin to notice certain stress signals from different parts of your body. You begin to suddenly understand have some insights about your routines, about your diet, about what you need and what you don't need. Yeah, when you're taking that whole pastry and that's not enough, you take another one. Yeah, when you indulge in that pastry, you begin to feel not only the pleasure from your tongue, but also the congestion in your stomach, and maybe even the stuffiness, the blockage in your veins. Right? So clarity of mind. From clarity of mind to having the right view. So having the clarity of mind and concentration, you begin to understand the Dharma teaching. The Dharma teaching, the teaching, what we're talking about now. How karma affects everything. Right? And what kind of things that we are ignorant about, how to remove that ignorance. So to removing ignorance and delusion, eventually we use this 3 roots with right discernment and the other mental factors to clear away to destroy our delusions, all ignorance, and we become enlightened. So this is needed throughout the whole path, right? Okay, almost at the end of this section. Of the specific dharmas, discernment can be good, which will bring one's mind to a state of non-ignorance. So when we use discernment well, that lead to non-ignorance, right? Does that make sense? When we're talking right now, you are using your discernment. And if you are with it, right? If you're in the present, your mind is you actually thinking and taking in, then you hopefully have learned something you didn't know before, and that will be non-ignorance. But it can also make a mistake. Discernment can also make a mistake, which will lead to a false view, one of the 6 primary afflictions. So when we hear some news or some things about certain person or certain situation, we may easily believe it. It may be biased presentation, and we believe that narrative, and then we develop this false view, and we're committed to that false view. And that can lead to more suffering, loss. Okay, question. Do you find it easy to admit your ignorance or mistakes in certain area situations? When you realize, oh, I made a mistake, or I was wrong, can you admit it? Do you find it difficult to admit it? Do you know someone who can never say I was wrong? Which mental factors are involved in each of these personalities? Some people who have no problem saying, oh, sorry, I was wrong. Thanks for pointing that out to me. Or somebody who would never say I was wrong. They know, but they can never say it, right? What mental factors are involved based on what we learned so far? If you find it difficult to admit I was wrong, I didn't know that, or I misunderstood, do you want to change? Do you want to change? If so, where would you start? Where would you start? Hint, start from the mental factors we already discussed. Okay? All right, that is a section. We still have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 5 more. No, 4 more. 8, 9, 10, 11, 4 more. Wholesome factors. Okay, so we should be able to finish next class. Our time is up. Our time is up. If you have any questions, you can save it for next time or put into our website. By the way, let me stop the sharing. Let's see. Have any of you tried the AI tutor, and how was your experience? Okay, somebody say my contemplation after the half-day meditation last Saturday, President Trump is neither good or bad. I do not like or dislike him. With that, my mind is at peace. Oh, very good. Very good, because I know that probably you were very upset with him, but now your mind is more at peace. That doesn't mean we are ignoring the situation, right? You can be at peace. That doesn't mean you ignore or just turn a blind eye to it. Doesn't mean that, right? Present mind in each situation, knowing the true nature of all beings have a potential to purify, clarify their minds. However, first we need to clarify and purify our own mind. Yes, even the person you really don't like have the Buddha nature. It may be hidden very deep, but they do have the Buddha nature. However, let's worry about ourselves. Start uncovering our Buddha nature first, right? Okay. Shifu, how should we understand results? Okay, did that.
Therefore, you are not on camera.
What's that?
Your camera is not turned on.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, somebody does have grief for donuts. Common. One of the greatest inventions to, to hurt people. Is our desire to not eat a donut a form of healthy greed? I think it depends on how attached we are to that greed, right? So yeah, everything's a balance. So we're not saying that eating donut is an evil thing, right? You can certainly have a donut or half a donut or a quarter of a donut once in a while. You be the judge of that. You know, you don't have to feel guilty about it. But know what would be a good level of resistance to that desire. Is it a good greed? Let's think about desire. Okay, desire comes before greed. So we already said that there are good desires and bad desires. When it develop into greed, then usually it's bad. Okay, usually bad. If we have a strong motivation to do something good, we will probably will not use the word greed. Okay. I think we need a link for the tutor. The link is in our YouTube lecture description box. Okay, let me see. I can find a link for you now. Let's see. So let me make sure that is the right link. Yeah, okay. So go back to Okay, so I'll give you the link right now, but it's also in the YouTube videos, right? So here's the link to our Dharma tutor. I tried regular AI by accident. It was very wise and dynamic. It did not have a perfect understanding of Buddhist principles, but it was like an advanced student with a vast database. So somebody didn't try our tutor, but tried the general AI. So it could be ChatGPT, it could be Gemini, or it could be any of the other general AI. You will find that it actually has a pretty good Buddhist knowledge, but do not trust everything it says, right? So our AI tutor is in a more controlled environment. So hopefully, I do believe that it has a higher accuracy. Okay, let us conclude the class with a dedication. May the merits of our studying the Dharma together be dedicated to all the participants and your family and friends and all sentient beings. May we all make progress in our non-ignorance, non-greed, and non-anger practice, all the way to ultimate enlightenment. May we have a healthy dose of shame and embarrassment as a form of self-respect and social conscience, but not too much to be damaging. May we keep in mind our right faith and diligence so we can develop these wholesome factors more and more. And we also dedicate the merits to peace everywhere in the world. Okay, so reminder, if you like to volunteer some of your time to any one of these projects, do send us an email. So some of us will contact you, and we'll see you next time, either this coming Sunday morning or next class. See you next time.
Palms together. We thank Jiahhu Shifu with 3 half bows.
1 half bow to the Buddha.
阿弥陀佛。
Okay, see you all next time.